Raids are some of the most exciting content Guild Wars 2 has to offer. If raids are totally foreign to you, the best way I can describe them is they're like a living, breathing puzzle that's actively trying to kill you and 9 of your friends while you solve it. Depending on the specific encounters you're comparing, raids are also some of the most challenging content in the game, and for that reason I also find them to be among the most rewarding. And they do have lots of rewards. In my opinion, legendary armor is way easier to get through raiding than the Soto collection, and you can also unlock legendary trinkets like Coalescence. Plus, once you're raiding regularly, they're probably the easiest way to get Ascended gear. Raids themselves also add a ton of original content to the game. Rather than upcycled story bosses like strikes, each raid introduces an explorable map with its own unique environmental mechanics, collections to complete, lore to uncover, and of course various different challenges, all chained together with their own storylines and voice acting. They bring the best of Guild Wars 2 all into a condensed, concentrated shot. And just to be clear, I like strikes. I run strikes almost every day, but to me, they just don't compare to raids, which is why today I'm going to help you get started with raiding in Guild Wars 2. Now, before we begin, I want to address what is probably the biggest elephant in the room for a lot of people, and it's something I always see on forums or on Reddit. There's a conception that the raid and strike community is toxic, or that people will judge you or kick you from the squad for making a mistake. I constantly see, oh, I want to get my turtle, but I can't because it's behind a strike, or I'll never get envoy armor because the raid scene is toxic. I know a lot of people who are afraid they'll be shamed for low DPS, kicked, bullied, whatever. Let me tell you a quick story about myself, and I promise this is related. I used to be terrified of going to the gym. I was like 120 pounds soaking wet, and I was absolutely convinced that the gym was a intimidating, toxic place where I didn't belong, and I'd be judged and stared at, or even made fun of just for my scrawny ass even showing up. Sound familiar? But I very quickly learned that that wasn't the case. In fact, it turned out to be the opposite of the truth. The reality is, everyone is there for the same reason, and everyone starts somewhere. Where I was expecting to find ridicule, I instead found an incredible, welcoming community where I've made some lifelong friends. Just like the gym, raiding is for everyone. It can be challenging, and yes, you'll mess up a lot when you're starting out, and that's completely okay. Trust me when I say it's worth it, because when you succeed at it, it's that much more rewarding. And oftentimes, those same people who were afraid of getting into raids are the ones who end up really enjoying themselves. Sometimes to the point where it becomes their favorite thing to do in Guild Wars. Hi, it's me, I'm those same people. Okay, story time's over, let's talk about Guild Wars. Before you meet your soon-to-be BFF Glenna, head to snowcrows.com or hardstuck.gg and look up effective builds for your class. Every profession in the game has viable builds, either for support or just big damage. If you're just starting out and you're not sure what to do, you might want to try a low-intensity build like Condi Virtuoso or Mechanist. That way, you can focus on learning mechanics rather than focusing on your skill bar. DPS tunnel vision is a very real thing. With that said, use what you're comfortable with. That is really the important thing. If you're doing a DPS build, go beat up the golem and practice until you're putting out some decent numbers. If you're breaking 20k on the golem, you're probably going to be fine in most raids. I did a video showing how to get familiar with a new DPS build, so go check that out if you're not sure how to set up the golem or you're just not familiar with your build yet. We could do several videos just talking about theory crafting builds, but that's not really the point here. As more professions are given broader access to boons lately, the game has slowly been moving towards a point where even endgame content like raids really invite anyone to come in and give them a shot. Speaking of which, you will see boons mentioned a lot when talking about raids, specifically group composition. For the most part, we're really just concerned about having a healer, someone to provide quickness, and someone to provide alacrity. Those will practically always overlap, so it's common to have a heal quick provider and an alac DPS, and then the rest just be DPS, just in one example. And since boons in Guild Wars 2 typically cover 5 members, your 10-player squad gets organized into 2 subgroups. Each sub needs the same coverage. Hardstuck has a really great guide explaining how to use LFG and what all the abbreviations mean, and I'll link that below. You won't need to worry so much about squad composition when you're just starting out. That's really the commander's job. But it does help to have a basic understanding of these so that when you see a squad in LFG saying things like they're looking for alac or quick heals, you'll know not to just join and say, hi, DPS, because it's just bad etiquette. Honestly, I find organizing a squad to be way more stressful than actually raiding, and groups will usually try to fill support roles first before opening it up to DPS. So don't make the commander's job any more difficult than it has to be. Just watch the LFG until the group is looking for whatever role you're willing or able to play. Now, you may have noticed before that LFG for raids is pretty empty, at least on the North American servers. Well, more accurately, it moves very quickly. Spots will pop up and then they're usually just filled really fast, so it helps to keep the window open and watch for new openings to pop up. If you're feeling gutsy, just start your own squad. You can use the training tab in LFG for this. Nothing wrong with a description that says new to raids, need commander, or anything like that either. Whatever you end up doing, just remember you're playing with 9 other real people. If you remember one thing and one thing only,
be excellent to each other.
One more thing on LFG. A lot of groups will require voice comms on Discord. It helps a ton when you're learning. Don't worry if you're shy, most groups are perfectly fine with you just joining on mute, as long as you can listen for callouts and instructions. And on the topic of Discord, it really is the best way to form and find groups. Snowcrows keeps a running list of raid groups from beginning training groups to hardcore speedrunners, so I'll link that below as well. I'll also link my home guild, Twilight Brigade, which I wholly credit for helping facilitate and grow my own interest in raids. Twilight Brigade was created to provide a safe and enjoyable space with a focus on Guild Wars 2 endgame content. Our primary focus is to foster an inclusive, LGBTQ+ friendly community with an interest in raids, strikes, and fractals, while engaging in other content including PvP, open world events, and social events. If that sounds like a fit for you, come say hey in our Discord. Finally, I want to give you a brief overview of what to expect when you take the first steps into a raid. Raids can be accessed from the Lion's Arch Aerodrome. If you mouse over their icons on the minimap, you can see the name of each one, and they're commonly referred to by wing numbers, in the order they were added to the game. Wings 1 through 4 are all Heart of Thorns raids, with the first 3 originally being conceived as wings within one giant raid called the Forsaken Thicket. You actually can walk all the way from Veil Guardian at the start of Wing 1 to Zera at the end of Wing 3. These wings share a plot line involving the Pact, bandits, ghosts, and the White Mantle. Bastion of the Penitent was a bit of a thematic shift, and as you might have guessed by the name, Wing 4 shares a lot of lore overlap with the Astral Ward and Cryptus in Secrets of the Obscure. Wings 5 through 7 are all the Path of Fire raids. Wing 5, the Goth Wing, is all doom and gloom, and Wings 6 and 7 are actually a clumsily disguised sitcom about a couple of Jinn betting on the Mystic Forge and then bickering about the outcome. The early encounters in Wings 1, 4, and 7 are often considered good beginner fights. Your mileage may vary, of course. One more thing on all of these wings, every week one wing will be selected to be Emboldened, and one will have the Call of the Mist effect. Emboldened means every time your party wipes, you get a buff that increases your damage and healing output, and it reduces incoming damage. It's great for beginners, or those just learning more difficult encounters. Call of the Mist doubles gold and experience reward, so that's not bad either. This happens on a schedule, so just check the wiki if you want to see which wings have these effects. Okay, I know that was a lot, but I hope after watching this you feel ready to try out some of the most challenging and exciting content Guild Wars 2 has to offer. Just remember, don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Remember, this game is for everyone and I know you're going to do great. With a good build and a good attitude, you will be amazed how easy it is to get into raids and you'll have a lot of fun doing it. After all, raiding is what?
Fundamental! That's right!
And hey, if more people join raids, maybe we'll eventually get a Wing 8. Ooh, too strong. If you found this video helpful, please consider leaving a like or subscribing, and leave a comment letting me know how you feel about raiding in Guild Wars 2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the Aerodrome.